Thanks for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Ryan and Scott. On today's podcast, growing up in the middle of the 80s guitar arms race and taking YouTubers to task. Next. Micronesia. Check one. Sibilants. Micronesia.
Croatia. I don't know.
I don't know. Is Micronesia the actual place? It sounds like it would be. It sounds
like it should be. Where very small people live.
If somebody told the island of the short studs.
President Shortstub. Yes.
If someone told me
he's from Micronesia,
it sounds plausible enough that I would believe them. Like, oh yes,
it sounds like a condition. Like where you don't grow hair or something,
or maybe you just forget
like
things
propecia?
in a short time, like a short little period of time. Like Micronesia. It's not amnesia. It's Micronesia. I forget things that happened 5 seconds ago. That kind of thing. That sounds about right.
I think you just described the plot to the next Adam Sandler film.
Oh man, the next Adam Sandler film I know for a fact is Happy Gilmore 2.
Oh fuck.
Electric Boogaloo, I think is the tagline on that one. So
seriously?
No.
Because you know what? One of my favorite cassette tapes when I was a kid, my cousin Mark gave it to me.
Okay.
And it had the soundtrack from Beat Street 2 Electric Boogaloo on it.
Okay, fine. Was it good? Was it awesome?
Oh, I fucking loved it, right? And then, of course, come to find many years later, it's a tagline for a fascist incel group.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Electric Boogaloo is?
No, they call themselves Boogaloo Boys. They wear Hawaiian shirts and live in their mom's basements.
Well, sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's really gross, though, I have to say. That's
all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Also, except for B Street 2, that was a great soundtrack. Let me tell you, I invite everyone to, like, if you want to hear like what rap was and hip hop,
like early '90s rap, kind of.
No, I'm talking like 1982 at the latest.
Wow, I didn't even realize rap existed. The first rap I was ever even aware existed was Run DMC.
Oh, this is way before that, man. This is like Grandmaster Flash era, like probably even earlier.
Wow, okay. I don't
like Africa Bambaataa, like super early. In fact, I think Ice-T had his first like film credit as just a very small character in Beat Street 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Wow, I think the audacity of like a film being called Electric Boogaloo. I just think that's so like audacious. I guess I'm gonna call this Electric Boogaloo.
Okay, well, because
everyone's boogaloos will be electrified.
So I've got to give rap and hip hop credit because like breakdancing was also a part of it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what the Electric Boogaloo I think was.
It's like a dance or something,
well, just breakdancing. Like throw down a piece of cardboard and breakdance.
Anybody of a certain age would know what Ryan's talking about. Like the breakdancing thing was like a thing. It was like almost like a cool. Hey, can you break dance? I remember being asked that,
dude. When
I was like in 4th grade or 5th grade,
right? Yeah, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I had a boom box and I had fingerless purple gloves.
Yeah,
or no, mine were red.
Mine break were red. Dance, right. Man. And I remember thinking I could moonwalk, and that was the coolest thing ever, man. Like, moonwalking is where it was at.
So there was, the dance was a part of it.
Yeah, it was definitely was. I mean, that was a thing.
Just like flamenco, it's just that instead of playing a guitar, you had a boom box. Yeah. And instead of dancing with a partner, you had a piece of cardboard
that you just flips and stuff around and spins and stuff like that. Yeah, totally. I mean, I remember seeing street performers in San Francisco when I was a little kid doing that kind of stuff and being pretty blown away. I was like, wow, that guy's awesome. He's really great at what he's doing. I couldn't believe it. He just had, a boombox on the side of the corner of the street. And he had a little cardboard thing he was doing his stuff on. And those guys were good, man. I couldn't believe
they probably make pretty decent money if they're like a tourist trap area.
Yeah, it's like Pier 39, San Francisco.
Right. So rich people come by and fuck off their money. Yeah. I mean, good. The artist should get paid.
Yeah. And that was the thing. That's an 80s thing that people don't talk about very much.
Artists getting paid?
No, that's something that's never going to happen. We just got to let
I wonder if Spotify's figuring out how to like set up holograms to steal income from those street performers.
I'm sure they will find a way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I think that when people talk about the 80s, they always talk about, the hair bands, or they talk about like big shoulder pads and, poofy hair and stuff like that. But that breakdancing thing was very much an 80s thing. It didn't really travel into the 90s at all, which is kind of...
I don't remember much about it in the 90s, but I mean, hell, we just had breakdancing in the Olympics.
Was that right?
It won't be in the next Olympics. I guess there was that controversy with that Australian...
Oh, I remember hearing something about this. Yeah.
Ray Gun.
Okay.
Was not good at breakdancing, but somehow she ended up in the Olympics.
Huh. Well,
she scored 0 points.
Okay. So she's did line dancing or something like that?
No, yeah, she
this is
like
what we're doing, right? This is breaky, right?
so she's a little older than so breakdancing is super physical, obviously, right? And, she's kind of like in her mid 30s, I think.
Well, you can still be pretty athletic in your mid-30s.
But not like these kids are, right? I mean, it's like gymnastics. It's very athletic, right? And so she tried to turn it. She's like a dance professor at a university in Australia, right? So
They have universities in Australia?
They do.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. When we have my buddy Dom on the program, he'll tell us all about it.
Tell me about the history of Professor Kangaroo.
That's Captain Kangaroo to you. So anyway, so she just wasn't as athletic as the other breakdancers.
Yeah.
So, she did like a kangaroo pose. And, I mean, it's on, I'm sure, like
punching, like the
yes. So like clips are available online. So it was a thing. So my point.
Wait, her name was Ray Gun?
Well, her name is Rachel Gunn, and so if you're a breakdancer, you have to have like a handle.
Oh, you can't just be like, I'm Joe Smith, whatever. You have to go up there and
well, then no, that's the breakdancing team from Utah.
Oh, the famous one,
Joseph Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's he's got a handicap because he has to wear that special underwear.
Yeah, and magical underpants. It's got to be some kind of performance enhancing thing.
Right. It's magic for keeping you chaste, but not so good for breakdancing.
No, I don't think it helps at all in that.
No, there's trade offs.
That's true. Yeah, got to make decisions in life.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Got to keep your boner under control.
Living in Utah is a good step towards that.
Yeah. Anyway, so
that's exciting. That's good to know. So I can promise there will never be an X Ages album called X Ages 2 Electric Boogaloo. That isn't going to happen.
Fuck, dude, I was going to talk to you about that later today.
Off air. Okay, fine.
We're working on a new album, folks, and you know what? I had my heart set and
on that.
So
sorry,
you heard it live.
I had to go and crush those dreams.
Scott just squashed my hopes and dreams.
Speaking of squashing people's hopes and dreams, and by the way, welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Brian and Scott. Thank you so much for listening. One thing that's caught my attention recently was, going on the YouTubes, as the kids call them, is
on the interwebs.
On the interwebs, which are a series of tubes, as far as I understand. That's what they are.
Right. So, like the tubes where you, like the vacuum suction tubes at the bank.
Exactly.
It's another thing I miss. Like I thought that was
having
the coolest thing when I was a kid. I know.
No, for a while.
When you put the deposit in the little tube and it went zoop, like the Jetsons through that. Like
that was exciting. They had this at Walmart or Costco for a long time too.
Oh, really?
Where they put like the money in the thing and it goes flying. It was crazy.
Wait, why would you put money in a tube at Costco?
It's the people when they clear the register or whatever, they would just put it in like this little tube and it would get sucked.
Oh, I thought it was like you put your stuff in the conveyor belt and then you put your money in the tube and then it goes and then like 3 feet later it shows up in the cash register.
That would be rad.
At the checker's hands. Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's a future that I would love to see. At some point, maybe we'll get that. But
that totally sounds like something you'd see at like Monsanto's House of the Future at Disneyland, made with space age.
Isn't Monsanto
plastics.
like the agribusiness though, like with all the chemicals and stuff? I mean,
they're just giant evil corporation that helped poison the food supply.
One of the many. Anyway, speaking of poisoning the supply, YouTube. One thing I've been catching a lot of attention recently. Whenever I go on there, I see these videos, and usually the tag on the video shows some completely like normal looking dude with a guitar in his hand on the thumbnail, and it's something to the effect of 2 things every guitar player needs to know, 3 licks every guitar player needs to know, 2 Eddie Van Halen ideas every guitar player needs to know, and this kind of thing. It's with some like dude like, what? Look at this cool thing! Oh, and the thumbnail. And I don't know who that's for, other than like people who don't have any experience playing guitar. Maybe I'm just coming from just too many years of being an instructor, but it's like there is no one thing you have to know, or 2 things or 3 things. It's like I don't know how many times. Like, what was it, 5? Like the cutoff? Because to me, it's more like the 200-300 things you need to know to be a great guitar player.
Yeah, or if like so, this kind of feels sort of like the. I mean, so videos like that they aren't for us.
No, they're for people who don't know anything.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Is it though? So there's, okay.
To me, that feels like there's like just a lot of like red herring going on. Like, sending them down this one path and say, and then they start believing this because they, for whatever reason, ascribe authority to this person who's got a YouTube channel, and they start believing that. And then as an instructor, my job eventually becomes like, okay, now don't listen to that. We need to go back and fix this. This is what we need to do. This is the order you need to understand things in. It's a process. It's not just 3 things you have to know.
Yeah, well, totally. I mean, you want to understand like the underlying fundamentals of a thing, right? So this feels a lot like, I mean, look, if someone can just pick up like someone who has no Eddie Van Halen licks, if they click on a thumbnail and pick up one Eddie Van Halen lick, then now they have 100% more Eddie Van Halen licks than they had before.
Yes, but if you don't know an A chord, that's a problem.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's because the learning how to play guitar from scratch is not that exciting. That's what I'm railing against, is that it's so like clickbaity.
Well, of course it is. Everything is.
It shouldn't be, because when you want to actually start getting serious about something, it's not like that. There's not like a simple one thing. Like it reminds me of those, like there's a Guitar Player magazine articles, like 10 things to sound like Alex Lifeson, all this stuff. It's like going like, well, I wonder
what those things are, because everything Alex Lifeson plays is so counterintuitive.
I'm using that as an example, but they'll have every couple of months, they'll have another article like, 10 things you have to do to sound like Rory Gallagher, 10 things you have to do to sound like Yngwie Malmsteen, and all this stuff. And it's like, I see that and it just makes me angry. I'm like, going like, number one, you should want to sound, 10 things that make you sound exactly like you.
Right.
That's what you should be.
Yeah, I
get
for. That.
Not like trying to sound like, whoever else guitar player. And the other thing is too, this is a person who's got a lifetime of playing and is expressing their individuality through music. So there's more than 10 things, I promise you, that go into that. You know what I mean? It's like, so I look at that as it's just bullshit. I think at the end of the day, that's why, and I think that's why I hate it so much. I have this innate, I hate bullshit so much. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so let's unpack this a little bit more.
Can we just keep it packed and just piss on it and take turns?
Yeah, but we've got a podcast to do. So, so so I must take the devil's advocate position.
I don't know that you must.
So that our fine listeners have something to enjoy.
Okay, so I can just keep railing though. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? So now, if the thumbnail were saying, this is the only thing you need to know, that's a different statement than like, here's 10 licks.
It's laid out sort of like the thing you need to know. Like
the only thing you need to know?
The man is keeping from you. I'm going to just give you the lowdown kind of thing. You know what
I mean? There is a lot of lowdown that we give our students.
Yeah,
right?
Because
there is a lot of like...
It's a part of the whole process of learning music. It's not like we tell them, hey, this is the one thing. This is the one thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, here's like the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And then eventually this all adds up to the one thing, which is you know how to play guitar really well.
Okay, so if you just met somebody, right, who...
It could happen.
I know, it could happen.
It could happen, yeah.
It doesn't happen as often these days in the world, but for guys like you and me, we meet new people all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
So we can espouse the benefits of socializing. Anyway,
so
you've got...
Fire bad.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got a beginning guitar student sitting in front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
This has only happened to me almost every day of my life for the last almost 30 years.
Right. Okay, so you're never going to see this person again.
Ah, okay.
And
because what are you planning? Oh my God, this
dude,
is
come on, just hang with my hypothetical here. All right, so you've got a beginning guitar player sitting in front of you, and you can only give them one piece of advice, and that's it. And you've got to give them the one piece of advice, simple, that's going to be the absolute best for their development going forward. And you're never going to see them again.
I will push back on that. There is no one thing.
It's a hypothetical. No, you can only give them one piece of advice. Your hands are tied. But you have to give them one piece. There's a guy with a gun to your head saying, give my boy one piece of advice, the best one piece of advice you can give that beginning guitar player that will have, there's other stuff they need to know, but you've got to pick one thing that will give them the most benefit as a player going forward without you.
Oh, that's easy. Learn chords. That'd be the first thing I would tell them. Understand chords. You know what I mean?
So learn chords. So the kid's going to be like, okay, I'm going to go memorize like my open chord diagrams.
Yeah, but if you're only given one thing, because 90% playing guitar is rhythm guitar. And what are you playing when you play rhythm guitar? Like most of the time you're playing chords. So if you're going to be a real guitar player, you have to understand chords and rhythm. That's the most important thing. Because if you play awesome lead, but you can't play rhythm at all, that doesn't help you in any way. It doesn't. It's better if you can play all of it. If you can play rhythm guitar and lead guitar, you're more of a complete player. If you can do that sort of thing, which is what we should be aiming for, is being a complete player. The other big thing too that I think that strikes me whenever I see in these videos, and I'm sure it's just because it's too complicated to do in like a 2-minute video or 5-minute video, whatever it is, there's almost no discussion of harmony, like chord harmony. And that's
going to be way over the head of anybody who's
but you have to learn that. That's the thing I would say that is one of the most important things, because if you understand a lot of scale stuff and you can shred and stuff, then you maybe do sweep arpeggios and you understand arpeggio shapes, but you don't understand keys, then you're basically all that information is useless to you.
Yeah, well, I
there's
mean,
nothing you can do with that. You know what I mean?
That's going to be way over the head of somebody who's just clicking on a thumbnail on it.
That's what I mean. But that's the thing. That's why this is why I'm saying that these kind of videos are bullshit, because like at the end of the day, that's not helping you become a great guitar player at all. It's giving you one piece of information. It's
I mean, it's giving someone like a jumping off point.
Nah, not even that. It's just like one an array, a constellation of just random bits that they're collecting, like a magpie in their nest. You know, but that doesn't help you actually understand how these things all relate to each other. That's why you need people like Brian and myself.
Yes, that is true.
To help to do that, because there's I guess but the point I'm trying to make is there is no 1 or 2 or 5 tips you need to know or things you need to know. There's like hundreds of things you need to know.
Yeah, I mean, the more you know, the more there is to know. Yeah. So,
but I think this is the thing that makes me so pissed about this is that like this is so intuitive. Of course, like any other discipline in life that you may ever come across, there's so much more to it than you can possibly imagine. And anybody saying like, hey, it's like almost like saying the 2 tips you need to understand accounting. Yeah. The 2 tips you need to understand quantum mechanics. You know, it's just so stupid. You know, and I think that the fact that gets people click. Of course it does, because people want to believe it's simple. People want to believe I can click on this thing and it's all good. I just need to know these 2 things, man. Or this is the thing I've been missing, and that kind of thing. It's like,
well, I don't know if that's how people approach it. So
okay, good question, because maybe have their own set. Because to me, I don't know. I just think that's complete nonsense, and I would intuitively know that. You know?
So in case anyone's wondering what my answer to the question would be with the guy holding,
I'm being asked. I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
That's okay, man. I'm just
that dude's gonna totally blow your brains out, though. I'm telling you, he looks means business. That guy.
Well, so this is a hypothetical. I have this conversation with students. If I could only give you one piece of advice that would make the difference between
your life and death.
Yeah, right.
There's this dude with a shotgun walking around the studios putting guns in people's heads. I don't understand where he even came from. Who let that guy in here? Does he work here? I don't even think he works here.
But did he write a manifesto? Is he a boogaloo boy? No, anyway, so the one piece of advice I would give to any player that will make the difference between whether they are able to make like music sounding sounds or not.
Also, Jack White clearly did not get this advice early, so.
Maybe not, actually. Yeah. I don't know. But my one piece of advice would be practice with a metronome.
So we're kind of on the same page in that one. Rhythm is a big deal. You know
yeah, because I assume that anybody out there that wants to play guitar is going to get a sheet with open chords.
You should not assume that.
No, I know.
What most people do nowadays, at least what I've discovered, is they go find tabs to riffs the songs they like. You know, and that's actually
it's got to be so hard to read tabs without knowing any chord forms.
Well, they don't, and they don't even know what chords are. So it's like one of those things. And you can say, "Hey, this is a G chord," and they go, like, "What?" And it's like,
"How can I play all those with one finger?"
You don't. Right. That's the thing, and I don't know. It's weird. I guess why I find it so bewildering is because I never ever, when I was even a kid starting to pick up guitar, thought this is going to be easy and simple. It never even occurred to me to think that.
No, but but you know what? I mean, and I say this humbly, but like, at that time, so I started playing when I was 11. So up until that point, I had golf lessons. Hated fucking golf. I still hate golf.
Yeah.
God damn it! Why? Like, and you know what? As I get older, golf keeps like permeating its way into my life.
It's gonna get more and more
like it takes over my close friends and fuck.
It's like the Borg. It assimilates.
It is. Yeah, golf is like the Borg. Like I thought that after I became an adult and like no longer lived with my parents all those many years ago,
yep,
I'd be free of golf. I thought my friends were musicians. No more golf.
Yeah. Well, now it's for them too.
Nope. Yep. Fucking golf.
Yep.
Anyway, so
that's a lamentation for another day.
God, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But like I did t-ball, right? Like I couldn't always hit the ball even though it was on the tee. Like that was not my bag, right?
Okay.
But guitar, I knew like, oh, this makes sense. I can become good at this.
Yeah. Okay.
Which means that at least like my first guitar lesson, Mike Johnson taught me how to play Rock You Like a Hurricane. Everyone knows that. 2-string power chords, right? And I played the shit out of it on my little plywood classical guitar, and the rest is my personal
Well, once
history.
you realize you can like play some music with that, it's just kind of a massive revelation. Like, oh my God, I can play music.
So maybe somebody clicks on that thumbnail and it's like Rock You Like a Hurricane, and they learn to play that one thing, and that's what gives them confidence to go, oh shit, there's the possibility that I could become not bad at this.
So what you're saying is it could be like a down payment on them believing that they want to pursue this further. That's kind of what you're thinking. Yeah.
I mean, the first step towards being good at something is sucking at it.
Yep, that's true.
Right. So, I tell you all about this Hunt Showdown murder game that I play. Right. So, like in the video gaming world,
life is like a Hunt Showdown murder.
Yeah. And, I'm not like a serious gamer guy or anything, but there's this one game that I play with a couple of buddies, and we picked it because it's fucking difficult.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Right. Like you have to play. So this is, okay. So whereas, like some of my friends play golf.
Yeah.
I virtually murder as a hobby because you can't just play guitar all, like you have to take little breaks.
Yeah.
In your life.
Yep.
Right. So, or let me put it this way. So guitar is not my hobby.
No, it's a profession. Yep.
So I get to have a hobby, right? Yep. There were periods of my life where I swore off video games entirely, like at least a decade I can think of in particular in my 20s.
Yeah. Which is a weird time. That's usually when you're at your height of video gaming. Yeah.
Well, at that, I wanted to be out playing gigs and stuff, and I wanted to be a better guitar player. So that's what I did.
Yeah, at that point, you're trying to build your skills and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a different thing, right? So it's like when I was working the sales floor at Skips, and then I'd come home and practice the set list for this band I was playing in, and then there'd be rehearsals, and then I'd get up the next morning and go to Skips and work 9 hours and do it all over, right? In fact, I like both of the times that I worked the sales floor at Skips, that's what my life was. And so there wasn't really time. Anyway, so I guess...
wasn't time for other things.
Yeah, so after all this time, and I still practice for my own betterment as a musician and a guitar player. You have to.
Especially the better you get, you need to maintain what you've developed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So, but I get to have a hobby. And so my hobby is this virtual murder. And we chose it, like you have to play this game like 60 hours before you even really understand what's going on. And like, dude, my character's like match rating is always going to be super low because I died so many times in the first like 6 months.
Yeah, until you figured out how to do the killing yourself.
Right. Like I'm like in the last like year and a half, I'm probably more realistically like a 1.0 KDA ratio.
I'm gonna pretend like I know what that means.
It means that every time I get killed, I've also killed someone else. So I'm like a 1-to-1 ratio.
How much killing is you doing?
Yeah, if you get up over 1, then you kill others more often than you get killed. If you're under 1, then you've been killed more times than you kill. So now I've been inching that back up, but I'm going to be capped at like 0.77 or 0.78 forever.
Yeah.
Just because of the learning curve, right?
Well, the good news is guitar doesn't work that way. Guitar, you can suck for a while, then it just starts you get a foothold somewhere. And then it kind of grows exponentially from there. As long as you practice, I think that's the biggest thing that people have to understand is there's no free lunch. If you want to be a great guitar player, you got to work at it. It's got to be, you can't just be like, oh, I'll do it sometimes when I feel like it. It's like, no, you got to be like on a schedule. You have to be consistent. Yep. There's not any shortcuts to anything worth doing or having.
But hopefully you love the work.
Exactly. And it shouldn't be painful. And I remember, dude, all those many, many years where I was working on, playing guitar, practicing, 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. There's no guy with a gun. He must have not started the job at that point. There's no put a gun to my head to make me do that. I did that because I was like, I want to be great. You know what I mean? That's the whole purpose of why you do that. And also, the more you get that foothold, the more you start seeing that progress, the more it sort of self-perpetuates. Yeah. And you want to keep doing it more and more and more. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
so maybe the clickbaity thumbnail thing. And, another thing I've noticed on the YouTubes, when I'm watching like other content, like I know that this particular channel that I check it, usually it's like stock market stuff. I'm just trying to like take the temperature of, and I know some
it's
guys.
An inferno right now is what you should know. The thing's burning down.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Fuck. Don't even get me started on that. You got 3.5 years to go. So where was I? So I know that there's, so after a while, like there's a couple of guys that I watch from the Motley Fool that I think are, not terribly scammy. There's some other guys that are very scammy.
Definitely not Nicky, man. Only Mick and Vince would be really the ones you can trust.
Right. Yeah. Tommy, he never shows up.
No, he's not even there.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Shit. It'd be cool if the Motley Fool put umlauts over the O's. That would be fucking like they could do a crossover event with you could invest in the next Motley Crue tour. Yeah.
Vince Neil's thoughts on the stock market.
So, I mean, everything has to be clickbaity on the thumbnail, but when you actually click on the video, it's not the same as what the clickbaity thing was.
I gotta tell you this.
And that's a frustrating YouTube phenomenon.
It is. It's the attention economy. It just drives me up a wall because
agreed.
There's absolutely very little substance to be had there in that sort of thing. And even there is substance in the video. Say it's a 20-minute video, like 5 minutes of substance, and the rest of it's just just nonsense. You know
Dude, 20 minutes is a long time for a YouTube video.
No, I know, but if they're just saying, like, hypothetically, let's say there's like say it was 10 minutes, whatever, like there's like 2 minutes of actual content and then the rest of it's just nonsense. You know what I mean?
And sign up for my other thing.
I think this is really like the problem with like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, like that, the attention economy thing is a problem because it doesn't drive like real conversation, real content. It really drives just, the most extreme, crazy, wacky thing that you can think of. Provocative, whatever it's going to be. That's going to be. Here's
the one guitar lick that
is going to change everything.
Let me rephrase it. Here's the only guitar scale you need to know, or the only lick you need to know, or something like that's. I mean,
listen to those like squares, man. This is all you need. That kind of, So I guess for me, I take it personally because I have to unwind a lot of that crap in my professional life. You know.
Well,
what I mean?
You know what? That's good for student retention because you're going to spend more lessons untying that knot.
But it's not good for them. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's
but
not.
Maybe I'll push back on that.
Not in my experience is that good for them. It's better for them to recognize, like, look, this is what you need to do. Don't listen to this other like stuff it reminds me of like flashing signs saying, "Turn left, turn right, turn left here," that kind of thing. It's like, no, just keep going straight. I've got you on the path you need to be on. Do this path.
Yeah, I approach it a little differently. Like, I want my students to be like, the worst thing I think that can happen with a student is that they're going to lose enthusiasm.
That's true. If they don't want to play guitar at all anymore, that's bad.
So here's it's not really an analogy, but here's an anecdote. So I was working the sales floor at Skips in the mid 2000s when Rock Band.
Yep.
The video game with the stupid ass controller. And it's like Simon, but it's music and stuff.
Yep.
Like initially, like my
Guitar Hero adjacent.
Right.
Yeah.
So, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh shit, all these people are just gonna, play Rock Band and that's gonna eat into the business. I don't know. I had a bad feeling about, like, I feel protective about like the music industry, right?
Yeah. For obvious reasons.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. But no, I mean, the opposite is what happened. It exposed all this awesome guitar music to an audience that wouldn't have encountered it before. And then a certain
this
percentage.
Kind of corresponded with the die of rock radio. Rock radio ceasing to be a thing, you know what I mean?
Rock Band came out at just shit. I wish there were another like rock band out there, right? That was getting people fired up the same way, right?
I think DJ Hero is the one that kind of did away with that.
Oh, fuck. Thanks for listening to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Please make sure to like, rate, and subscribe. Now back to the show. Yeah. Anyway, so no, I think it drove guitar sales and lesson signups for a very long time.
Yeah,
it's
for
really
years.
Good, right? Yep. So, that's how I view like the Marty Musics of the world, right? Like I started a new student last Friday and I told him, look, you know what? Marty Music's great. Whatever you're watching, great. I want you to be as immersed in guitar as humanly possible. There is not a topic out there that you're going to find on the internet or YouTube that you and I can't talk about. So go for it. I want you to be a guitar sponge. Soak it all up. I'm not afraid of anything, like let's do this, right?
That works as long as it doesn't become a weekly battle of, did you work on that thing I told you to work on and you didn't because you worked on this other video that you saw on that. And it's like, okay, well, you need to know this, so that's why we're working on this. So you can do this and that, but you can't do that and not this. You got to do both or not.
Some are harder than others. Yeah. I understand. I sympathize with that too. Like sometimes I'll have a student that I can't remember that this has happened more than once where like they just won't practice fucking bar chords, right?
Yeah. Because they're hard.
And then, well, I want to learn a song.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and then we'll pick a song. Yeah. They pick a song.
Guess what? Bar chords.
Right. So now sometimes, so that can be an inflection point for a student, right? Sometimes it works and we move forward, and other times they're about to quit.
Yeah. Well, because it's hard.
Right.
That's if you're going to quit at the first sign of something being hard, then there's not a whole lot you can do anyway.
Well, then we don't want that student anyway.
Well, I mean, you still try everything you can to help, but it's like, that being said, like if that person's going to quit at the first rubbing up against something difficult, that's this was always going to lead to something difficult.
Yeah, so, maybe they should go take up drawing or something, or
I think also that shows you
entomology
they don't have that passion, that kind of that fire. I'm going to do this no matter what kind of fire. You know what I mean? That they don't have that. And I think that you can't give that to someone if they don't have it. You know what I mean? I've had that happen many times where it just kind of becomes clear at a certain point that they just don't really like playing guitar. It's not their thing.
Now, there's also, but the other thing I think that I've learned, I can only speak for myself, but there's also that middle ground person.
Yeah, there's a lot of those actually.
Right. The recreational, I mean, that's a lot of our clientele, the recreational musicians. So, you said earlier you were practicing 12, 14 hours a day because you wanted to be great.
Yeah.
Well, some of my students just want to get lost in the same song for like 6 months.
Yeah, but that's not pushing them forward. I'm cool with that. If
some of them don't want to be pushed forward, they want to. I mean,
they're going to get pushed forward either way. I mean, it's like look. My job is to make you a good guitar player.
Yeah,
and then my job is to listen to you and work with you and try and do that. But there's certain X amount of things you need to understand to be a good guitar player and to be a complete player. And then once I've kind of laid those materials out for you and you've got them under your fingers and you have some degree of proficiency, then we can be more open-ended in what we're doing. I've already established these are the things you need to do. This is how a practice schedule works. This is what you need to do to be successful.
Sure.
Then we can go wander the wilds of whatever song you will work on that week. And then we're going to always tie that back to what our fundamental tools are.
So,
you know what I mean? And that's, to me, that gives them the gift of you will always understand music because this is the stuff
I totally agree.
Teaching one thing and then they learn that one thing.
However, if a student's just trying to say, I can't be too specific with this.
Okay.
I've got to
protect the innocent.
Yeah. Okay. let me just think of So say your student's got like a favorite song. Let's say it's "Stairway to Heaven." Okay. And like that student just really wants to learn more than anything in the world "Stairway to Heaven." Now, maybe they're older, right? I've got a lot of students, who are retired.
Okay.
Right. Where, I know that for some that arthritis is a thing. Like there's certain physical capabilities. There's, there's a whole host of reasons that they're not us when we were teenagers.
Yeah. Well,
right?
How dare they?
No, I know.
You bastards.
So, maybe I would love to, do some like finger style exercises based on some like, fundamental, finger style method stuff I've got. And yeah, I'd love to be able to explain like what key we're in. And I would love to be able to explain, the scale from which the solo was derived. And, I would love to be able to have that conversation, and I would love to not ever have to say, put your third finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string, right? But the absolute reality is that student is not going to spend all that time on those fundamentals. They simply are not.
Well, they're going to.
No, they're not.
Or they're going to go find someone else to take lessons with.
So that's where we're different. Because I will slog it out with you on Stairway to Heaven. That's fine. We could do Stairway to Heaven for like 6 months, and along the way I'm gonna sprinkle in. Oh, and by the way, remember when I pitched like learning key signatures to you? Here's that thing, or
I don't do anything that different than what you're talking about. It's just, but that being said, it's not an either or. You're going to learn these things, and we can do it through the context of the song if you want to do it that way. But you're going to still understand what key you're in, what the chord changes you're playing are, what scales you're using.
Well, I'm going to try to explain that. They may not understand it because they haven't done the fundamental work underneath.
See, the thing is, we never get to that point until we've done the fundamental work.
Oh,
and the way I do it. So it's like we're going to understand key signatures and key centers, and you know what the difference between a 1-4-5 and a 1-5-6-4-1 is. You understand how to modulate what minor keys are.
So if someone just digs their heels in and wants you to teach them Stairway to Heaven just rote, you're just not going to do it.
I'm going to say, well, we'll get to that, but do this first.
And if they say, no, I really need to learn this song.
Okay, then you need to go on YouTube and do it for free. That's why I tell them, then you don't need to be here. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it, because it's like, look, I'm here to teach you, and I don't assume that you, as the person walking in the door, know anything. And it's not for the person who doesn't know anything to understand. It's for me as the instructor to tell them what they need to know.
Yeah,
that's why I'm there. Yep. That's why they're paying me. You know what I mean? It's not for me to just make them feel good about themselves in that particular moment, because I know there's a bigger picture. And whether they see that or don't see that in the moment is not important. What matters is I know where we're going, and I know where we're going. And I'm never going to be unreasonable with somebody. I'm always
okay. Yeah, of course not. And I'm not, dude. I'm totally not trying to bait you into that at all. This is hypothetical.
But that being said, I'm not going to accept. I'm not going to put any effort into this. I will not accept that as an answer.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you're rarely going to get a student, I think, that just says no. So that's kind of a bullshit hypothetical I'm putting forth. But I mean,
just won't accept that as an answer.
We get to know, we get to know people, and it's like, hey, so like probably the best. Hey, if you want to learn how to play that lead line in Stairway to Heaven or whatever, then here's a minor pentatonic. Here's some exercises you need to do.
Well, here's the thing. I lay that all out first. Well here's I'll kind of tell you. We'll do a handful of tunes. Like I'll kind of introduce when someone starts off from scratch. Let's say like this is the notes of the neck. This is how you tune the guitar. This is the name of the strings. Here's your open position chords.
Here's the names of the parts of the guitar.
Here's how you name power chords and it's a movable shape. This is how root notes work. This is rhythm. This is a quarter note, eighth note, triplet, shuffle, 16th note, syncopation, that kind of thing. We'll lay all those fundamental tools out. This is how you arpeggiate chords. This is finger style playing. This is hybrid style playing. And these are how you practice these guys. Just get your feet wet with these concepts, and get that kind of going there. And then we move into some songs, and I'll teach them usually 10 songs top to bottom.
Yep.
And then we're going to take the same tools we just applied to the exercises a minute ago, and we're going to apply it to these songs. Now you're going to be able to play not only those ideas, but you're going to be able to play the song too. Mm-hmm. May not be your favorite 10 songs you've ever seen, but you'll have 10 complete songs when we're done with this, and we'll try and make them as cool as possible. Although I always roll my eyes when someone bitches about, AC/DC. I'm like, yeah, that's AC/DC. Everyone loves AC/DC, dude. Come on, easy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, everyone should love Highway to Hell and Back in Black.
Yeah, or Dirty Deeds, TNT. It's like, how can you not like those tunes? You know what I mean? That's like, especially if you want to play something that rocks and is simple, here you go.
I'm sick of hearing it, but I like Thunderstruck because that, when people... I think people see Thunderstruck as being sort of like a milestone in their playing.
I guess. I don't know. It's like, yes.
I'm just trying to
hammer on and pull off.
Yeah, I know, but for others, I'm I look
at that like that's
for the growing guitar player. The way I perceive people, the way I see people's perception of that song is that they view it as
sure. But I actually do
milestone.
I do a real milestone with my students, and it's Hot for Teacher.
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
wholeheartedly agree.
Similar but way cooler. You know what I mean?
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm taking the it doesn't matter what I think approach.
No, of course it doesn't. No, you got to be there for your student for sure.
Yes.
That being said, though, like you can't be a real guitar player and not understand how keys work.
No, I agree with that.
You can't be a real guitar player and not understand chords and rhythm. You can't.
Some of our students are just recreational musicians that aren't trying to be real guitar players.
Well, I mean,
they just want to be able to play that song.
You can have all the understanding of a real guitar player and still be a recreational. Most of the people are.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think we should aim a little higher.
I agree, but
look at guys. Once I teach you how to know keys work and how to change keys, and once you know scales and how to connect them and how they play in different keys,
this is a rich topic.
Then you have that information forever, and then you can go and learn those whatever songs you want, and you'll always be able to tie it back to that concept.
I think what can be challenging is that some, not all, but some, relative to guitar and music, some, not all, they're not like us, Scott.
That's not true. Everyone's exactly like us. What are you talking about?
So you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah, of course.
And just, well, I'm not saying that you don't. Yeah. But it, I mentioned this because it was a hard thing for me to come to grips with, when I first started teaching.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
Again, and I've said it on this podcast before. There's the kid who just wants to have the person they have a crush on walk down the hallway at the high school party, hear them playing a Green Day song. Hey, you're playing Green Day. Mission accomplished. That's it. And that's okay, because maybe that person's going to become a physicist.
Yeah, that's true.
And they just want to be able to play a fucking Green Day song. That's fine.
This is a false choice that you're saying. I mean, it's not like you can only do one or the other.
It's hypothetical day.
The goal is to just
Rock
learn
Guitar Confidential,
and then you can go learn as many Green Day songs as you want, but you'll actually understand them on a deeper level and be able to learn them much faster. You'll have all the tools already there.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's just there's sometimes.
Here's what I would describe it as. I tell my students this: like, you should learn music theory and technique first, because then you can apply it to everything. Like, it's almost like the other way is like, hey, I got to go to the store, so I better build my car to go drive to the store. Or you can just have the car built and then driveway and just go to the store. You know what I mean? It's like, you may as well just build the car the first time and do it right, and then you can go to the store whenever you want. Going to the store being an analogy for learning whatever song you want to learn. You shouldn't have to build the car to go to the store. Does that make sense? So that's kind of that's the analogy I'm using for that. So you should just already have that thing in the driveway ready to go at all times. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense to just do an a la carte. Like, I'm going to build a wheel. and maybe I'll stick a saddle on it or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's
but
like,
you know,
just build the car, dude. That's all you gotta do. Build the car.
You know what's great? You know, music's an emotional thing too, though. So we have clients that come in with like different like levels and types of self-esteem and life experiences and stuff, right?
Yeah,
so
that's part of that's why AI is gonna have a very hard time replacing us.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Because so much of what we do is take care of our students' self-esteem, right?
Yeah,
Give them encouragement.
Yeah. And be supportive and walk them down the path.
That's right.
And that's something that, and everybody's different. Everyone needs something different from you.
And so maybe in order to build self-esteem, they just need to be able to play a couple licks from Stairway to Heaven.
Totally agree,
we're just gonna wherever we are.
That will never be the end of it, though. That's going to be a part.
No,
of the puzzle,
no,
you know
God,
what I mean?
no. So, that's not the be all end all. No, I mean, and look, there are some people that they learn to play that Green Day song, and then, well, that's it. Thanks for the lessons.
Only
that's
song?
the reality of it. Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny, though? That definitely ties into the second thing I want to talk to you about today, which is the guitar arms race that kind of happened in the mid-'70s going to the late 70s, that kind of thing. Because there was a time, you know, let's say early 60s, through like probably early 70s, mid-70s, where if you're a budding young guitar player, you know, if you understand your open position chords and you got your pentatonic, you know, scales down, man, you're ready to go. Be in a rock band, you know what I mean? And I think that worked great when you're trying to play, you know, blues-based sort of simple stuff in one key or whatever. You know what I mean? It was either 12-bar blues-ish fundamentals, or just like, you know, folk kind of music,
like 8-bar blues,
or just even just, you know, 1-4-5 derivative kind of chord progressions, and you could do it no problem. But something in the mid 70s ish, like right when like UFO and Deep Purple started kind of hitting the
UFO's so good.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like when those bands came out, there's great guitar players who actually understood what, you know, diatonic scales were as well, and they could throw in things like Phrygian mode and Dorian and Mixolydian and things like that. And they can, and maybe if you're Richie Blackmore, you understand harmonic minor and diminished scales too. And then they started working that stuff into the music. You know what I mean? And that's when things really started turning. Like, okay, and these guys also were, you know, incredibly proficient players. Not that the guys from the '60s weren't proficient, but they were proficient in like the blues sort of world, if that makes sense. Like
you know, I think something that's been kind of lost is that. And not to take it on a tangent, because when you were 70s guitar guy, you know, all right, I got my open chords, 1-4-5, got my pentatonic scale, I'm ready to go. Right?
You've now achieved the highest level that a guitar player had known to man has done.
So
except for Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin and those guys who were doing that already, you know, playing, you know, modally and exotic scales with crazy technique in the fusion days in the 70s.
So if you're that, so if you're that 70s guy, and you still spend a ton of time like with a guitar in your hands, then you're, you know, dynamics and touch, and you know, if you're just playing the same like
because it's simplicity,
5 notes, right? If you're just playing like the same 5 notes over and over and over again, then you know how to play them loud, you know how to play them quiet, you know how to let them sustain, you know how to mute it, you know how to slide between a pair of notes, you know how to hammer on, you know how to pull off, you know how to play staccato.
Bending intonation was a big deal.
Right, bending intonation is a big deal, right? So, I have a really hard time teaching people to play with feeling.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's something that you have to sort of get proficiency enough to feel like you have control of what you're playing before you can even do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where you're not just like checking tab fret numbers boxes, off a list.
So, but that takes also a lot of experimentation too. I always tell people, like, you got to loop pedal and jam. Just experiment, you know, try a bunch of different stuff out. You just got to sit and explore. You know what I mean? It's not going to, if you don't do that, if you just like say, even if you were to go and like learn a certain person's style, like say you're really into like, you know, Jimmy Page or something, then you went and you really did a deep dive on his playing, you stole all the licks and you could play them perfectly, but you're still not really expressing yourself. You're sort of just, you know, trying to speak in someone else's voice, which is weird.
And I think, and so here's another good piece of advice, you know, whether you're the person who's just trying to learn, you know, whether you're Marty musicking it or if you're, you know, smart and take lessons with either me or Scott.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Best decision you can ever make, actually.
Absolutely. It'll change your life for the better.
True. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Never be the same again.
That's right.
And not just because of the random guy with the shotgun walking from studio to studio.
Right.
Never be the same. I don't ever feel safe again.
For today's lesson, you'll put the lotion in the basket.
What? Who is that guy? I didn't even let him in here. Like,
right.
So I'm sorry.
So, spend time with your guitar.
Yep.
I think the so like there's a certain group of people who think that every time they sit down with their guitar, it's got to be like super structured practice schedule time. Like I again, speaking for myself, you know, I grew up in a music store, right? So
you're playing guitar all the time anyway.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't know what it's like to not have a guitar within arm's reach. Look, I can.
Yep.
Like from where I'm sitting, I can just reach
Ryan
my arm out.
The guitar right now.
Yes, from where I'm sitting, I can just reach out and grab a guitar.
Yep. No, you're right.
I'm so used to just having guitars around me all the time where I can just grab one and fuck around if I want to. Right?
I think that's the thing that you have to. It's got to be both. It's can't be either or. It's a both and. You do structured practicing, and you need to explore. You have to do both those things, and then if you don't, then you're going to get neither of the benefits of either.
Yeah,
so if you're just exploring, you're never going to develop your technique. If you only do technique, then you're never going to really find your voice.
So 70s guy, you know, he didn't have Marty Music or the YouTubes.
Yep.
And he, you know, and TV wasn't the same, right? Like just, you know, so but he had
channels,
right? Yeah, three. Yeah, you had the 3 network channels and then like 3 syndication channels. Yeah. So 70s guy or gal like could just grab a guitar and spend hours plucking around on their guitar on the couch.
Well, they had to. You have to put a record on and listen to it if you want to learn that riff. There was no Guitar World magazine. There was no YouTube tutorials. You know, back then, most guitar teachers were either classical or jazz musicians, so it wasn't like you could go find a rock dude who's show you this stuff, you know what I mean? So you had to do it yourself.
So I think there's definitely that DIY, and then, I don't know, I think that helped raise better generations of guitar players.
Well, it's different, and I think that the amount of tools that you need, and this is where the arms race part comes in, is like that mid 70s was a turning point with like Richie Blackmore and Michael Schenker and Uli Roth and those guys, right?
Uli Roth, hell yeah.
That kind of really started changing. And by the time you got to 78, when Van Halen came out, that was like an atom bomb going off. And then after that, right on his heels.
Actually, I was born in 78, so that was the atom bomb that you felt. Yeah. It was when the Earth was trembling in November.
I would still argue that's eruption.
Well, I mean, it coincided, right? I was born to honor
chicken and the egg.
Right? Yes. Eddie's eruption actually like signaled my birth.
That'd be awesome, dude.
It actually they played it throughout the hospital, like when I was born. Yeah,
that's when Ryan comes out.
Fuck you.
But that was a massive turning point in music. Like I think that everything about what he did was like an evolution of everything that came before it. You know what I mean? It was like a complete leap. You know what I mean? Into the future. I always use the analogy. It's like the movie Star Wars. The same kind of thing. There was movies before Star Wars and there's movies after Star Wars. You know, and that was like a major turning point for what could be done. Does that make sense? And I think Van Halen.
Like technically, yes. The original trilogy before Lucas molested it.
Well, what I'm saying though is that was a big deal. You can see that after '77, when Star Wars came out, like everything totally changed.
And you know what? That's back when
what was expected, like special effects, what space movies look like,
right?
You know, kind of thing. Everything about that got massively upgraded,
and kids got to watch a fantasy film with actors that were older than them to look up to before they started fucking it up by casting children.
But I think Van Halen in the same way, like that.
You know what's great about Van Halen 1?
What?
No children.
Well,
that's
who
really
knows?
Great.
I mean, children were probably born
yeah, but they didn't appear on the album
after the tour.
So they didn't appear on the album.
Apparently, I guess Roth and Van Halen took out some kind of paternity suit insurance or whatever because they were banging so many groupies. so
that's where all the brown M&Ms went.
They couldn't afford them.
All the bastard children of Dave and Eddie were eating up all the.
I guess apparently there's a story that Michael Anthony is like the only one of the richest person that was in Van Halen because he only was married once.
Yeah,
so
I can see that,
which is kind of funny. So
and his wife still won't admit who she is because he's the bass player.
Wife. I know.
No one knows who she is
for that self-esteem,
or what she was doing.
Yeah. But it was there.
He stays humed to the living rock. Dude, I'm so fired up about Spinal Tap 2.
It's coming, man.
It's called Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues.
Oh, is that right? I was thinking it was me Electric Boogaloo again. I just recycled that one. No. Yeah. Right. But no, I mean, that was a major turning point. And then so, because, you and I started playing guitar in the wake of Van Halen, like almost 10 years after Van Halen came out, we started playing guitar. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, by then we'd had Randy come out, and then Lynch, and then Vines, and Yngwie and Satriani. Those guys come out, and so the bar got raised so quickly from like
and we just threw into the deep end of the pool. So
but that was like, it wasn't good enough to have your two pentatonic patterns in your open chords at that point. You had to understand arpeggios and diatonic scales and modes.
Man, that was so much fun.
It was so much. It was the greatest.
It was so much fun.
Everywhere you looked was endless inspiration.
You got to be part of this like family of awesome guitar players. Right? Like a welcoming community of people that was
excellence was encouraged, and everyone was trying to help each other up.
Totally.
It was one of those things. I mean, I'm sure at the highest level, like when bands were like fighting out at the playing clubs or whatever, there were probably some ugly competitiveness. But for the most part,
Eddie turning towards Alex so that nobody could see him.
Because everyone was going to try and steal his shit too. So, but I mean, that's just competitive advantages like you'd see in any business. But and like for us in our experience, every guitar player I came across who was a great player was happy to share what they knew.
Yeah,
you know
totally.
what I mean? And it was kind of a and then like every time you turn around, like, oh my god, who's this guy? Who's this guy? It was like it was so inspirational. And I think in a strange way, it was also encouraged at that time to go find your voice, because every guitar player who was great had their own unique spin on being great.
Yep.
It wasn't like everyone had the same book they read. Everyone kind of had some techniques in common, but they all kind of had their spin on it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that was something that also at that point I remember taking very much to heart, saying, okay, I shouldn't try and sound like anybody but myself.
Yeah,
I should
agreed.
I take these tools, learn all these tools, and then I should try and distill that into me being who I am. And that was the goal back then. And I think that in a weird way, in the last, like, say, 10 years, we've had the kind of an uptick of that, like the arms race sort of thing happening with a lot of the newer guitar players. But I think that the individuality part of it's kind of gotten lost a little bit.
Well, it's, again, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but they're like so there's two phenomena, right, that I think are influenced by digital culture. One is I'm trying to play the song exactly like the original guitar. I'm trying to do it, and then I'm going to post a video of me playing a cover on YouTube, and people are going to give me likes.
Because that's the end goal right there, is we want to try and have it be spot on. I'm going to do a cover version.
I'm going to do a cover. I'm going to put a YouTube video up of me playing a cover song. Like, which just that's so wholly unappealing to me.
Well, that's exactly like doing an Instagram, the same thing, or whatever. Or TikTok. It's a kind of an extension of the clickbait thing we talked about before.
And I'm not saying those people can't play, but
most of them can play great.
Yeah, right. And I just. Like, why? I just would never want to do that.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't bring you closer to being you. Yeah. That's the thing that I think and I think that, I don't know, maybe that's just a holdover from the bygone era that is just not important anymore in 2025. You know what I mean?
So there's that, and then like modern original guitar music is very mathy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, even then, there's not like there's nothing like for the average listener to grab a hold of. I think that's the thing about that music that's so challenging. Back in the day, like we have, say Van Halen is doing "I'm the One" or something like that. But there's like a cool chorus and breakdown, and then there's this ripping solo. But it wasn't like just the ripping solo. You know what I mean? It was like part of a package. You know what I mean? Of a whole song that was great and accessible.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing now is that. But I mean, I think what we're probably missing, just from our perspective, because of where we grew up and how we kind of engaged guitar initially, is that nowadays it's not about that. I think that if I was 16 right now, I'd probably be looking for a different end goal than what I was when I was 16.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's something that people our age have a hard time understanding. Probably much the same way that 70s guy had a hard time understanding why we want to learn harmonic minor and diminished scales and stuff like that. Like, but that doesn't make you sound like Paul Kassoff or Clapton.
Or Terry Kath.
Yeah, but that's, you know what I mean? I think there's a similar kind of befuddlement amongst that generation about like the shred generation. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I think that, even though we come from the shred generation, this new shred generation is expressing themselves in a way that doesn't look like what we think it should look like.
Yeah, in the metal world it does, but when you get into like the Tim Hensons and Tosin Abassis and stuff,
they call it prog now. Yeah,
that's prog now.
That's what they're calling prog. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not for me. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, it's technically astounding.
It's great playing. I mean, it's not like there's anything wrong with those guys, what they're doing, and I get the impression that they're expressing themselves,
sure,
in a true way.
I don't, and it's probably a bad example, but it just goes to show my ignorance. But like, there's a lot of like players in like the math, like the more mathy prog, like I wouldn't be able to tell one from the other.
Yeah, that's what I mean by individuality.
Yeah,
it's not, and I think the other thing too is that That, it's funny is that I don't know, and this is probably an after effect of sort of the clickbait culture sort of thing, but I don't know that being unique is really venerated anymore. I don't think that's really a thing. I think it's just like, what's going to make people stop and look at me kind of thing is what they care about. Just because if you're doing something,
wouldn't you then by definition have to be unique if someone's going to stop and look at you?
Not at all. I mean,
you just have to be the same.
They have to be whatever like is going to get people's attention. You know what I mean? That's whatever that's going to be. And then sometimes doing something unique is going to be that. But it seems like that, at least in my experience, watching whatever comes across my feed on YouTube, it's never that. It's always just like this. Hey, like the 10 tips for whatever thing is like kind of. What's going to make someone stop and click on this? That's not so much like, hey, this is me expressing myself in this new song I wrote. That's not going to be as clicky as like sort of, 10 tips to sound like Tim Henson or whatever. That kind of thing. That's going to be more clicky, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's so tough because, I mean, for like, once you click on like one thing in YouTube, right, then it's going to set the algorithm loose.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I never click on stuff that my buddy Jason puts on our text thread, because I'm going to give him credit for like being smart enough to throw that crap in like a Trojan horse.
You in there. Yeah.
It's a Trojan horse. Like you click on it, and it's not about clicking on like the stupid ass news article he wants you to read from a debased source.
Opening up that whole portal.
It's because it changes your algorithm, and now you're going to get more of that shit. Yeah. So like, I feel like and sometimes you get tricked.
In so many ways, the algorithm kind of thing has really been not great for humanity.
No, it's been so many ways. Oh God, I mean? It's been proven to be awful. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's designed. It's not like it's just happening.
Yeah, it's designed that way. I mean, Facebook's destroyed society.
Yeah, it's one of those things that. Well, I mean, it's we happily ourselves are complicit with that destruction.
Well,
not you and I, but like people who are like who are living that kind of clicking kind of culture.
I mean, if science and like billions of dollars of research like prove that America's all about developing like the next addictive product. The next personally destructive addictive product, because we live in a highly capitalistic society.
Yep.
Right. Right. So like, right. So like Facebook designs this fucking thing because they understand,
because their business model is about trying to get views, and then what's the thing that's going to drive engagement is going to be the most,
Yeah, it's like a slot machine, and it acts on the dopamine in your brain,
and that's not
all
by accident. That's something that they paid a lot of people with a lot of psychology degrees to figure out how to do.
Yep, that's absolutely right. So I mean,
like yum yum yum, bring me more yum 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 yum. It's
so the challenge of being an American is just how to not become an addict.
I wish it was just America, but it's not. It's actually the entire world.
I mean, I think it's particularly.
No, there's billions of people on Facebook.
It's particularly acute in the United States.
That may be an affectation of our own perspective, if that makes sense. I don't know.
It could be. I get the sense that like other parts of the world that are culturally more intact. If you lived in like Japan or Sweden, like, here we go. Here's a theory, and I'm pulling this out of my ass.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, no, as good as any other theory. You can judge a culture by the quality of its art.
That's true.
And so, Japan and Sweden make better art than the United States does. Whereas
I thought you meant by Art Monk, the former wide receiver for the Washington football team.
But you would be mistaken, because you're talking about football.
Art Shell, the famous tackle from the Oakland Raiders. That's who you're talking about, right?
I was talking about Art the Clown, the serial killing, murdering clown from the Terrifier film series.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense then. Okay.
Yeah, see, that's
so
the art.
Judge it by that art, by what art does.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So, I think, I mean, yes, I know it's a worldwide problem, but I mean, America is like, again, we're a consumer culture, which I've bitched about on this program before.
Well, that's not new. That's been really since the beginning. You know what I mean? America's always been that way.
It's a problem everywhere, but I think it's worse here. And of course, here is a huge place. I mean, we're 50 individual countries all cooperating. I don't think people think of the country that way, but
no.
Yeah, anyway. So
I think I signed an agreement years ago that I should never have to think about West Virginia. So that frees up some gigabytes in my brain. You know what I mean? It's like,
although I gotta say, one of
Dakotas, I can only pick one Dakota to care about. You know what I mean?
I've got a student, a longtime student, who's become a good friend, who's a tow truck driver from Virginia.
Oh my God, there's 2 Carolinas too.
And he is the funniest motherfucker. Yeah, he's a great guy.
As
too.
are most truck drivers. Most truck drivers are
shout out to my buddy Glenn Gilkerson. If you're listening, Glenn, love you, man.
Yeah, truck drivers will show us the way.
Glenn is the best thing to come out of West Virginia.
Nice.
I guarantee it.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
But otherwise, I try to.
I just realized that there's 2 Carolinas too. I don't understand why.
Actually, maybe Glenn's trying to forget about it.
Why do I
he
have
lives
to
in California,
know more than one Carolina? Can't we just have one Carolina? Why do we need 2 Carolinas? I don't get that.
Yeah, look, I wholeheartedly agree. But anyway, so
Okay,
other countries do better than us at stuff.
That's sometimes true.
I don't know how we got there in our conversation here, but
because it all comes down to the same thing. It's like an attention economy. Then that's a lot of what it is. And like the guitar arms race from the 70s to the 80s, and then the complete fall apart of that in the 90s, and the resurrection in the 2000s of the massive technique thing that is something that is driven in part by the algorithms we're talking about right at the beginning, as far as attention economy. Like a lot of why those guys like Tim Henson, those guys, they've gotten the followings they do is because they have very, very successful YouTube channels. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's not based on the hit songs. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
So so to kind of wrap things up in a tidy little bow. Meaning me, I'm a tidy little bow. Anyway, so I know. So what's hard to understand is that, or what was hard for me to understand. So for some people, guitar is just, and playing guitar is just entertainment.
Yeah, it's just something to do. Yeah,
right. And so then, therefore, also coming to their guitar lesson is also entertainment.
Yeah,
like it has to be we're entertainers, man.
Yeah. It has to be something that's enjoyable, and they look forward to it. You know what I mean?
And I think it's great that I wouldn't describe either of us as being particularly introverted.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we both got our own. Again, humbly, I think we both have our own charisma.
Yeah.
But I think some of that comes
charismatic.
Yes, that's right. Well, that's because we grew up looking up to these larger than life heroes,
gods,
right? And then even every other guitar player who's a generation older than me, that's a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. There's a certain kind of attitude and I don't know, personality,
pre-internet kind of personality that you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if, I don't know.
Sadly, that's going to die with our generation. We're the last pre-internet generation. That's really sad to think about, but it's totally true.
Yeah, we've got to be, sound guitar instructors, but we've also got to be comedians. We've also got to be therapists. We've also got to be just entertainers, right? So so I mean, a personal rule for, I don't know when this crystallized as a thought in my mind as a guitar teacher. But
okay.
Every lesson
epiphanies.
So every lesson has to have a good vibe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's you have to have a good time at every, you've only got a half hour with this person.
Nick Shrimpton, man.
Maybe an hour.
Have a good time all
right,
the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, dude, wow. We did a good job rolling that all up. Yeah. So as Mick Shrimpton before his untimely death taught me.
Of course. Yeah.
You need to have a good time all the time.
Exactly. That's the plan. That's what we try and do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what the purpose of actually not just guitar playing, but life is. Just try and have a good. You only have it short, man. Life is short as hell.
Right. I mean, we create culture to distract ourselves from the certainty that we're eventually going to just not exist anymore.
And on that happy note, thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to find out more information about Ryan and I, please go to our website at xagesband.com.
That's www.exagesband.com.
There you'll find links to our social media. Please make sure to follow us on social media, and please make sure to like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Peace.